The movie begins inside an empty store where Carol is seen desperately searching for any kind of medicine or energy drink. She's trying to stay awake as dangerous forces keep banging on the door, trying to get in. This chaos started just a few days ago. A space shuttle exploded while returning to Earth, and its pieces scattered across several states in the USA. News channels began reporting it as a possible alien invasion. While most people were too scared to go near the wreckage, some tried to make quick money by selling the debris online. Tucker, who works at the Center for Disease Control, visits one of the crash sites. He discovers that a piece of the debris has a strange organism on it, something that can survive very high radiation levels and multiply very fast. The evidence suggests that it came from another planet. As Tucker is leaving, he accidentally touches a small piece and gets a cut on his finger. He doesn't take it seriously and goes home. That night, his dog growls at him and then starts acting distant. When Tucker goes to bed, his body begins to sweat a lot, and his face changes strangely, almost like something else is possessing him. Meanwhile, Carol is woken up by her son Oliver, who's screaming from a nightmare. She rushes to his room and stays with him until he calms down. The next morning, Carol gets a call from Tucker. He suddenly wants to see Oliver, which is very unusual since he hasn't been around for 4 years. Carol refuses and ends the call. Later, she drops Oliver at school and heads to work. On the way, she meets her best friend Ben, a doctor. He offers her a ride and tells her that the government is hiding something big. He says that all the scientists who worked at the crash site have mysteriously resigned. Carol, who is tired of hearing about conspiracies, changes the subject and complains about how strange Tucker has been acting. At her office, Carol meets her first patient, Wendy. Wendy says that her husband has been acting weird lately too. A few days ago, he came home and the family dog started growling at him, even though the dog had always been gentle. Without any emotion, Wendy's husband killed the dog. Carol starts to feel that something is seriously wrong, but for now, she simply gives Wendy a new medicine and lets her go. That evening, Carol and her neighbor take their kids out for trick-or-treating. When they get close to a certain house, the family dog there starts barking wildly. The owner insists the dog is usually calm. As they try to leave, the dog suddenly jumps on one of the boys and knocks him down. The boy doesn't even react. He calmly grabs the dog's mouth until the owner pulls it away. Later, they all gather at Carol's house. While the kids share candy, the neighbor quietly says her son has also been acting cold and emotionless recently. Suddenly, Oliver screams from another room. Carol runs to him and sees a weird piece of flesh in his hand. It came from the candy. The next morning, Carol sees a frightened woman running through the streets, but she doesn't stop to ask. She takes the strange flesh to Ben, who passes it on to his scientist friend Steven. Steven agrees to run tests on it, but says it may take some time. Meanwhile, a mysterious virus begins spreading across the country, causing many deaths every day. No one knows where it came from. An emergency meeting is soon held in the Capitol, where Tucker explains that the virus is spreading faster than anything they've seen before. If no action is taken, the country could fall into a major crisis. When some researchers ask about a solution, Tucker says the only option is to start a national inoculation program. At the same time, infected waiters are shown throwing up directly into the tea meant for guests at different events. After leaving the hospital, Carol sees a homeless man having a seizure on the street. Unlike the frightened woman she saw earlier, this man is getting help from people nearby. When Carol arrives at her office, she is shocked to find Wendy's husband waiting there. He refuses to leave without seeing his wife and speaks with no emotion at all. Concerned, Carol quickly calls Wendy to warn her and stops her from entering the building. Wendy decides to take a taxi to her sister's house instead. That night, Carol decides to let Oliver spend some time with Tucker, since he is his father. On the way to Tucker's house, a terrified woman suddenly appears in front of the car. Carol hits the brakes just in time. The woman pleads for help, warning that something terrible is coming. But before she can explain, another car hits her. Shockingly, the driver stays calm, showing no emotion. When the police arrive, Carol offers to testify against the driver, but the head officer tells her to go home, saying they have everything under control. This makes Carol suspicious. She drops Oliver off at Tucker's house and notices that Tucker, too, shows no real emotion when greeting them. Later, Carol joins Ben at a fancy party. There, they have a deep conversation with diplomat Belisek, his wife Ludmila, and Dr. Urish about the situation. After the party, Ben drops Carol home and tries to kiss her, but Carol pulls away gently. She doesn't want to risk ruining their friendship. Once inside, Carol texts Oliver to check on him. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. A man claiming to be from the census department is asking questions, even though it's very late. Carol becomes suspicious and tries to shut the door, but the man blocks it with his hand. A struggle breaks out, but Carol manages to push him back and lock the door. The man leaves. Meanwhile, Oliver is playing with his friend Jean, who says his dad is also acting strange. Oliver agrees, saying his own dad has been weird too. When Oliver gets home, he sees Tucker preparing a special drink for him. The next morning, Carol notices something very wrong. Many people on the streets have blank stares, like they've lost their souls. When she gets to her office, she finds that all her appointments have been canceled. She tries calling Wendy, but her husband picks up and says everything is fine. Now deeply worried, Carol starts thinking about all the strange things she has seen. She realizes the virus might be changing people. She starts searching online for answers, but is interrupted when her secretary walks in and offers her tea. Before she can take a sip, Ben calls with important news. The test results for the strange skin patch are ready. Carol rushes to the lab, where Stephen explains the findings. The skin sample is made of countless tiny spores that take control of a person's brain while they sleep. These spores rewrite the person's genetic code, turning them into something inhuman. The only way to stay safe is to avoid sleep until a cure is found. Suddenly, Ludmila calls Ben and says that Yurish is acting strangely. Carol, Ben, and Stephen quickly head to Yurish's house. On the way, Carol sees long lines of people waiting to get vaccinated. When they reach Yurish's house, they find him in bed, his body going through a terrible transformation. Carol tries to take a photo, but he suddenly wakes up and attacks her. Ben shoves him aside, and Yurish drags himself away, throws up a strange liquid, and dies. Shaken, Carol realizes that Oliver might also be in danger. She rushes to Tucker's house to get him. When she arrives, Tucker is in a meeting with his colleagues. Carol wastes no time and immediately asks where her son is. Tucker tells Carol that Oliver is playing at Jean's house, but she doesn't believe him and starts searching around. Suddenly, the men from Tucker's meeting surround her. Scared, Carol tries to escape, but Tucker tackles her to the ground and infects her by spitting into her mouth. Luckily, Carol manages to push him off and runs out through the back door. She tries asking the neighbors for help, but they are infected too. Carol runs to her car, only to find all roads blocked. She tries to drive away, but ends up crashing. As she gets out, a group of infected people starts chasing her. She runs into the main road, begging for help, but everyone just ignores her. Desperate, she runs into a subway station. Carol boards a train, but it's full of passengers with cold, blank expressions. Just then, her phone buzzes. It's a message from Oliver asking her to save him. He says Tucker has hidden him somewhere. Carol starts to break down, but one man on the train quietly tells her that he isn't infected either. He explains that people are pretending to be emotionless so the infected won't notice them. He tells Carol to do the same. Suddenly, a group of infected passengers enters the train. Carol and the other same passengers run to the last car and lock the door. But the infected press the emergency stop button, causing the train to halt and begin breaking through the door. Carol quickly opens the rear door and jumps off, escaping into the tunnels. She runs until she reaches a locker room and finds a guard's gun. When the guard shows up, she panics and accidentally shoots him. Shaken, she drops the gun and leaves, pretending to be infected by keeping a blank expression. Back on the street, Carol sees police officers capturing uninfected citizens and forcing them to take the so-called vaccine, which is actually how Tucker is spreading the virus. One uninfected officer sees Carol sweating and quietly warns her to get away before someone notices. She walks away and runs into her neighbor, who offers her the shot. Carol stays calm and convinces her that she already took it. Later, Carol returns to Tucker's house but finds it empty. She leaves a message for Oliver and keeps moving. On the way, she sees a crowd watching a couple end their lives. She stays emotionless and walks by until she reaches the Belisek mansion, where Ben and Stephen are still working in the lab. After a brief discussion, Ben agrees to help Carol find Oliver. Stephen and his assistant decide to go to Fort Detrick in Maryland to work on a cure. All of them agree to stay awake in case they've been infected. Just then, Belisek comes back. Ludmila hugs him, but he turns out to be infected and suspicious. He calls in a group of guards to search the house. Luckily, Carol and the others see on the security camera and escape through the back. Out on the streets, they see Wendy being dragged away by infected police officers. She fights back, yelling that she slept and still didn't change, but they knock her out anyway. After splitting up, Carol and Ben talk about Wendy's strange immunity. They remember that she once had a brain illness and decide to look into it. They find a dead police officer and steal his car. At Carol's office, they search Wendy's medical file and discover she had encephalitis, a brain condition. That's why she's immune. The virus only affects healthy brains to grow and spread. Ben calls Stephen to share the news. Meanwhile, Carol gets another message from Oliver saying he's being held at his grandmother's house in Baltimore. Carol quietly tells Ben she's already infected. Ben reassures her, promising everything will be okay. He then drives fast toward the city, dodging blocked roads until he is forced to let Carol go on her own so the police will chase him instead. Carol continues on foot. When a cop stops her, she shows her ID and fakes a blank face. He lets her go. Carol finally boards a train to Baltimore and hides in the bathroom. She's completely exhausted and starts seeing strange visions, like a second version of herself in the mirror trying to attack her. She wakes up in time, washes away some weird flesh from her body, and steps outside. There she sees Gene, who says he lost his family and now he belongs with hers. He keeps asking her to sleep, but Carol pretends she will, just not in front of him. Once the train reaches Baltimore, Gene checks on her again and sees her removing more infected skin. He grows suspicious. Tucker soon arrives and escorts both of them to his mother's house. Oliver isn't there, but Carol continues her act. When Ben calls, she pretends it's just a work call. When Tucker leaves for work, Carol searches the house and finds Oliver locked in a room. At first, they both hesitate, unsure if the other is infected. But once Carol says a few emotional words, Oliver knows it's her, and they hug. Oliver explains that he's been sleeping every day, but hasn't changed. Carol realizes his medication for sleep disorder has protected him from the virus. Just then, Gene walks in and sees them. But Carol quickly pushes him aside and escapes with her son. On their way out, Tucker sees Carol and Oliver through the window and immediately chases after them. They run through the streets until Oliver spots a broken window in an abandoned warehouse. They crawl inside and hide, but Tucker enters the building too. While he monologues like a typical villain, Carol tries to sneak toward the exit. Unfortunately, Tucker catches her from behind and tries to knock her out. Just in time, Oliver hits his dad with a metal tool, but Tucker grabs him instead. This gives Carol the chance to strike Tucker on the head, knocking him out and allowing them to escape. Later, Carol and Oliver hide in an empty department store. Carol searches the medicine aisle and finds an injection. She shows it to Oliver and explains that if she ever falls asleep, he must inject it in her heart to stop the infection. Afterward, they go seeking food, while Carol is on the phone with Ben, who has learned about their location and promises to pick them up soon. Oliver wanders toward a door with blood splattered near it. Luckily, Carol notices and stops him in time. She goes inside instead and finds several people mid-transformation on the ground, including a cop. Carefully, she takes the cop's gun and rushes out, locking the door behind her. She warns Oliver to stay away from it. Hours pass while they wait for Ben. Oliver falls asleep, and Carol, now extremely tired, desperately searches for anything to help her stay awake, echoing her struggle from the beginning of the story. Despite her efforts, she eventually falls asleep. Meanwhile, the infected people trapped inside start banging on the door, waking Oliver. He sees that his mother is asleep and quickly injects her with a syringe. Carol wakes up just in time, and the transformation is stopped. She washes the infected flesh off her face and exits the bathroom, where she finds that Ben has finally arrived. Carol runs to hug him, but then realizes he's been infected. She backs away as Ben tries to persuade her to join the new society free of crime, hate, and discrimination. Terrified, Carol points her gun at him. Ben calmly opens the door, releasing the infected people. He warns her that they hate immunity and then points at Oliver. The group tries to capture the boy, but Carol opens fire, killing them one by one. However, she can't bring herself to shoot Ben, so she wounds him in the leg instead and escapes with Oliver. They jump into Ben's car and take off. While Carol drives through the chaos, she gets a call from Steven, who gives her the address of a helicopter pickup location. Soon, the street becomes jammed with cars. Carol crashes into one and loses consciousness. Infected people surround the vehicle, and Oliver locks the doors, desperately shaking her until she wakes up. One man breaks the window, but Carol hits the gas and drives through the crowd to escape. Several infected jump onto the car, clinging to the roof. Carol swerves wildly, crashing into things to knock them off. Police cars try to block her path and even crash into her, but she keeps going. One final hit throws the last few attackers through a store window. The car still runs, and Carol continues driving as Steven gives her directions over the phone. Suddenly, an infected man throws a Molotov cocktail at the car, setting it on fire. Carol doesn't stop. She drives the burning car all the way to the parking lot of the evacuation building. The vehicle crashes into a pillar, and Carol and Oliver jump out, running to the elevator. The infected nearly reach them, but they fight them off just enough for the doors to close. They make it to the roof, where Steven and his military team are waiting. They board the helicopter and are finally rescued. Sometime later, scientists outside the US develop a real vaccine that successfully wipes out the alien virus. Life returns to normal. As the lead scientist, Stephen tells the press that those who were vaccinated won't remember anything from the outbreak. Meanwhile, Carol has adopted Jean and is now in a relationship with Ben, who has been cured. One morning, as the boys leave for school, Ben reads the newspaper and comments on recent violent crimes. Carol pauses, remembering what the infected once promised, a peaceful world without conflict, and she wonders if it might have been worth it after all.